welcome to Shatter Our Souls. It's been about a year since we took a dive into the Borderlands, and today I'm doing what is essentially impossible. And that is, I'm aiming to beat Borderlands without using ammunition at all. Now, the wonderful side of this is that upon dropping a weapon, you lose access to R1 and L or R2 abilities, which effectively means you can't pull a trigger and you can't throw grenades. And while it sounds about as effective as Claptrap pushing buttons without actually touching the panel, it's gonna actually be a little more to it. See, of course, our main solution for reaching out and defeating enemies as a whole is going to come through a solid application of cannons, specifically lefty and righty. And of course, we are going to be using Brick for this entire run, as Brick has every tool necessary to really dive in and beat any opponent at the most close range and personal means possible. So, before I get too far ahead of myself, let's talk about how this is going to work out. About once a week, I'm going to be putting up a video, ideally Fridays. We'll have Borderlands show up as a no ammo run, usually reaching for at least one boss or something of that nature. Because, truth be told, I don't see more than half an hour at a time being very viable. With that in mind, here's our main problem. Opening up the game, the first section is effectively a giant tutorial about teaching you how to effectively pull a trigger. You don't even have the knowledge of how to jump yet, sprint, you name it, unless you have played the game prior. And while it would be fun to run around flailing like Claptrap here, I prefer a little more of a front-facing and fast-paced run. Of course, the good news with this particular challenge is that if at any point in time I go down, I can either A, revive at a new U, which makes this much less punishing than some other runs may be, or I can start up by effectively going through the downed state and getting a revival by defeating an enemy. All good, right? This is the crux of the issue. I know for certain that this is not a run that is feasible without dying, and I'm making this abundantly clear. I know that trying to defeat every enemy with just two hands is not going to be feasible, especially near the mid-game. I know that this is the type of a challenge that's really not going to be feasible to defeat flying enemies. This is all good. This is all expected. What I'm aiming for, instead of a 100%, instead of seeing just how impossible it is, I instead want to see exactly how much of the game is beatable without the use of any additional tools. Now, for this, we will be making very liberal use of shields, and effectively the character-specific items. For example, sniper comms for Mordecai, and so on and so forth. This is intended to make sure that every time I pick up the game, there's at least some hope of forward momentum. But I digress. Once you finish off the initial tutorial, you are met with the wonderful Dr. Zed. And Zed is great for a lot of things. Surgery is not one of them. And this is going to be probably one of the most important relationships that Brick is going to have in this run. Zed is in charge of med vendors. Med vendors dispense shields. Shields mean survival. And at this time, I gotta say there is absolutely nothing that any character can do against any enemy if they can't take a hit or two. And this is the crux of what I hope to be a full run of Borderlands 1. Now, during this early phase, a lot of this is going to seem really simplistic. Goals are effectively just get as many level ups as possible, because through it all, there are only 2 ways of getting stronger. Technically 3. There is the character-specific item, which buffs typically something like your health, your accuracy, or sometimes it's ammo regeneration or melee damage. Other times, it can be... The rest of my upgrades are going to come in the form of level ups.
I knew you were the right choice.
Artifacts,
The poor little robot needs our help.
and,
Would you
in
kindly give
the
him a
rare
hand?
case, shields. And this is because, effectively, that is the only weapons or tools that are actually going to make a difference if I don't have access to weapons at all.
Why don't you look around for something to fix
To
him
keep
up?
things fresh, fun, and exciting, I'm also going to be using
Now is
the
time to get moving and play your
shots
part in
fired
returning to
counter, open as a general start of each episode, as I want to make sure that I show just how far we've gotten without firing a bullet. And you're gonna have to trust that I haven't thrown a grenade, because I physically can't without a gun in hand. For whatever reason, grenades are tied to guns in Borderlands. And this sounds really silly, because if you have no weapon and you attempt to throw a grenade, you're just going to end up making the motion, but nothing's going to come out of your hand. Your ammo count will remain exactly where it is, meaning that, effectively, you don't have to worry about it. Now, why ammo? Part of it is just because the Borderlands, despite being absolutely full to the brim with guns, have a really bad habit of not having bullets brought with them. And, well, truth be told, bullets in Pandora are incredibly expensive. So, why not spend a little bit of time showcasing that you don't need bullets to succeed on Pandora? So, as things are, Brick is probably one of the weirdest characters that I've played so far. I've never played Lilith, and I won't lie about it. Generally, I go with Roland or Mordecai. Roland I tend to use because of the aid station mechanic, where I can at least heal and supply my teammates with ammunition, with health, with a little bit of enemy aggro off of my fellow players at any point in time. The reason why I use Roland in general is because ideally he is the support character, and typically I'm not the best at shooters. So, Roland is my main. Mordecai is the character that I beat the game without dying. And that was, admittedly, using the 2 most overpowered weapon sets available. The first being the snipers, and the second being revolvers. And I wanted to prove that even without the most overpowered or ridiculous tools that you might ever get, that this game is still at least feasible with a little bit of hard work, a little bit of grit in your teeth, but you'll make it happen type of thing. So, that's where this all kind of came from. Now, for those who have played Brick, take a look through the tool tree, or the skill tree. That's the word. The skill tree dictates how this run is going to work. On the far right, you have the blaster tree. And the blaster tree is notable for being all about explosives. Its entire mentality is around not only handling explosives, but dishing out explosive damage. Meaning that while it is potentially useful with the right set of circumstances right now, it is the absolute last tree that I want to spec into, because the blaster tree focuses in exclusively on explosions. Explosions are useful, but under the current rule set, the only explosive damage I'm intending on getting is through the use of the Berserk mode. And the Berserk mode has this lovely circumstance where it's more focused on the melee damage than the elemental damage. So for me, that kind of says that the far left and center tree, one being focused in on, of course, dishing out as much damage as possible with the special ability of Brick, and the other being focused more on utility, such as increasing shield strength or health, is the way to go for now. Anywho, we're taking out a couple banditos in and around the control of Nine Toes. Nine Toes is the first major boss of the game, and going through and playing the game trying to aim for a deathless run taught me a few things. Number one, there is actually a blind spot in his arena that makes the entire run or the battle a little more on the trivial side. Secondly, I can guarantee that some weapons have enough damage to dish out a one-hit or one-shot KO on this boss at the earliest circumstance, effectively 5 minutes after you boot up the game. Meaning that Nine Toes is not much of a challenge for this particular run, by my understanding. We're going to have to worry a little bit about damage output, but damage output is small compared to what can be done. Anywho, we're going to head back. We're going to pass in these quests, probably level up at least once, meet TK, and then we're going to sort out a couple side missions to head to Skag Gully. Now, I suppose I want to get into why Borderlands. Borderlands is one of those games that focuses in very, very specifically around guns.
What is it? You can call
And
me sick.
sure, some games out there like Call of Duty
Might not
or
have a med school degree. but
oh,
when
we'll
you
pick
get
another
shot,
one out of the
you'll be
hat. Let's
happy
say
I'm
Crisis or 007 or all have less of a focus on the guns, ironically enough, than Borderlands does. Borderlands' identity was built around an absolutely astronomical number of guns. From glitched guns to low rarity to high rarity to every single attachment under the sun, there are guns for everyone. There's a little something for everyone when it comes to playing Borderlands and using its toolkit to the fullest. Now, I want to make this clear. There is almost nothing that stands between the player and the end of the game if you are diligent and patient enough to get there. But The problem is that when you start taking away the mechanics of Borderlands, certain things become very, very, very difficult. Taking away guns as a general statement is probably one of the weirder abilities and changes that I would personally make.
It'll be your last.
So, there are players that
You
have
should see
actually
the look on your
beaten
face.
Borderlands effectively 5 ways to Sunday. Every single weapon
newcomer.
type,
I've been
every
looking for you.
single build, every single character has been meticulously tinkered with over the span of the last 1.5 decades. And I want to make this clear that it is a game that has near limitless customization in how your character is intended to function. Even with the special weapons alone, there is numerous areas of which your character can grow and be stronger than what you would ordinarily expect. The reason I want to bring this up specifically is because I've seen runs where people have went for white rarity only, gold rarity only, legendaries only. I've heard people stick with one specific elemental variant only. I've heard of people even trying to complete this specific type of run where it's without pulling the trigger. And I like that idea, but every one that I've seen where it's been without pulling a trigger have allowed grenades. And that to me is great, but it also loses out the no ammunition aspect of it. Grenades are incredibly powerful, useful, and versatile. And I'll be the first to admit that I'm the type of player who focuses in on transfusion grenades. Simply because I don't have to worry about getting them in a specific area. They'll do the work for me. But the lovely part about that is that players have a long-range option in a time or a situation where long-range options shouldn't exist. And I think this is a good thing. I think it's meant to push the boundaries of what is expected and even possible within the world of Borderlands. But I believe we also tend to get stuck on what we believe is possible. I've seen people go through and beat each game without the use of specific item here, specific item there. No oxygen or O2 kit in Borderlands the pre-sequel. That's fine. No big deal. Right? That's just how it is. That's just as it's expected. But you can also take these types of runs in radically different ways and still get functionally possible results. So, I figured with no weapons whatsoever, if I can beat 2/3 of the game, we'll say, or get to a specific point in the game where I have to throw a grenade, or I have to do this, or have to do that, then that's where we get to. As you can see, in the left-hand side of the screen there, I'm attempting to throw some nades. None of the grenades actually were thrown, therefore you can see that without a gun there are no grenades. But knowing exactly how far we can push this may inform future runs of the rest of the franchise on just how ridiculously we can push those as well. And I know for certain that there are players who have absolutely demolished the entire Borderlands franchise without dying. And those individuals are far greater gamers than I will ever be. But I am also the type of player who tends to try to find solutions based primarily in patience. And patience is absolutely one of my strong suits. But it is also one of those things that tends to mean that my runs end up being either more or less ridiculous than some other players might actually have it be. Anywho, that's neither here nor there. We are effectively entering Skag's Gully at the moment. And we've gone from each Skag being about 4 hits apiece down to 2, suggesting that we are getting extremely close to one-shotting I suppose they'd be the pup Skags, and getting into the territory where we're going to be dealing with higher tier enemies soon. And we are officially leaving the tutorial zone to enter the first opening area. Now, anytime I get a chance, I am going to be looking for better shields, comms, you name it. Because I want to make sure that I have the solutions to absolutely anything possible as soon as possible. I want to make sure that it's not a lack of gear that is preventing me from succeeding in a battle. I want to make sure that if I'm stuck behind an enemy that's 2-3 levels too high, that it's simply because I lack the skill to beat them, not because I lack the gear to actually fight that opponent. Something that I think comes up a little bit throughout the franchise is level scaling. So, the reason I want to bring up level scaling for a moment here is because at any point in time you fight an enemy that is considered higher level than yourself, they actually take less damage than expected, simply due to the fact that they have extremely high defenses. You as the player, even with the base gear that you start the game with, will reach a point where the base gear will do more damage on a high level character than on a low level. If that makes sense. If you have a level 60 character with the base gear you start the game with, and a level 1, level 2 version of the same character, the level 60 is going to do exponentially more damage to any level opponent. Which is a fancy way of saying that the entire point is to slowly but surely collect enough levels at this point in time to make sure that the character becomes as overpowered as necessary to be able to actually finish the run in one go. Yuck. Weapons. And we are officially entering the caves to the first boss, Ninetoes. Now, Ninetoes is one of those bosses that I admittedly have fought so many times I have kind of a pattern planned out for when I face him. First and foremost, I always go to the right. Ow! Going to the right and onto the top back corner of his arena, there's a little fence with an opening. For whatever reason, despite the fact that the fence is just one of those wireframe fences, you can actually block any and all attacks coming in through it. Which means you get a full view of the arena without actually putting yourself in danger. Which is a great toss-up. You get more out of it from that than just running around hoping that he doesn't hit you. Secondly, you're going to want your special ability. In the case of this particular run, running in without the special ability activated is effectively a death sentence. As Ninetoes has access to a SMG that will do an obscene amount of damage right off the hop. Third, As soon as you go in to actually fight the boss, you want to finish him in one cycle. If you do not, you're going to be dealing with both Digit and Pinky. Digit and Pinky are great allies for him as they are two high-level, high-damage skags and with high defense. These two skags are going to be his bread and butter, his safety net. If you can't defeat him in one cycle, you have to slowly but surely whittle down Digit and Pinky before attempting to fight him again, theoretically in this circumstance. But why do I say it in this way? Digit and Pinky aren't even in the field yet. As soon as you break his shield, Digit and Pinky spawn in. Meaning, aim to take him out as quickly as possible. Once Nine Toes is dead, Digit and Pinky don't have a whole lot that they can do to you individually. But there's still enough danger, so to speak, from the two skags alone that you don't want to take this fight lightly, but it isn't one that I would say is high-end. Anywho, with that, we have beaten the first boss of Borderlands without firing a single bullet. So, yeah. What do I personally believe that this run is about 80% doable. There's a few oddball missions that I think are going to be rather difficult. For example, fighting Mad Mel. I can see that being a problem. As any slip-up can lead to an instant KO with Mad Mel. But aside from that, you have Mothrak, which flies too high in the air to be fought on even terms, and the Sierra Guardians, which are all long-range specialists that float around out of reach. Effectively meaning that for these three enemies in particular, fighting one-on-one is near impossible. Anywho, knowing that, I'm going to first start with the Brawler tree. Specifically, I am going to go with the Endless Rage skill. Endless Rage will allow me effectively to keep my Rage mode going longer, or Berserk mode. Longer Berserker mode means theoretically longer healing periods. Longer healing periods, longer safe zones. It means that I can push a little bit harder, knowing that the healing that'll come when I go into Berserk mode is going to do a lot more to keep me going than just waiting around. Anywho, while we're here, I just wanted to say that if you like this, or like what you see, I would love if you do drop a like, leave a subscribe, and I hope to catch you next week. If you're a fan of Borderlands, let me know, and maybe go through and find the playlist on the Mordecai Deathless Challenge. I promise, it is a little bit on the lengthy side, but there's plenty of Borderlands lore to go around. Anyways, that's all for now, and I hope you all have a good one.